Welcome to Impact Discipleship. It's Saturday. We got a packed out house tonight. All the angels are here. Everybody's ears are percolating. They're waiting to hear about Proverbs 10.
I love that. I love that. He says, or he is percolating. It reminded me instantly of what not to do, not tickle the ears. Tickle the ears. So here, I promised when we started Proverbs, each time we did a proverb, I try to get through the whole thing. Today we're going to do 32 verses. That's all of Proverbs chapter 10. And a message titled Wise Sayings, Volume 1. When you study the Proverbs, you realize that this section of wise sayings begins in Proverbs 10. You know, the first 9 Proverbs was a mix of constant, like beating over the head of this idea of wisdom and understanding, mixed with the warnings against sexual morality. Like literally, that's like the first 9, for the most part, the first 9 Proverbs. Chapter 10, and I believe all the way up to around the center part of chapter 22, is just a list of the wise sayings of Solomon. And so I think, what I'm currently thinking is when I get to chapter 11, it's going to be Wise Sayings Volume 2, all the way up until we finish all the volumes. And to save time in our video time, in our class time, what we're not going to do during that period of time is just read the whole proverb, because it's just really one section. It's not sectioned out. It's just a list, basically a list. And so there's 32 verses, there's 32 sayings. And so instead of going and reading them in advance and going back and reading them, we'll just start with one at a time. And I think, again, I wrote this in the last few days. But what happened as I was writing it is I saw the proverb. I said, I'm going to reword this maybe in a way that's maybe a deeper understanding, explain some of the content inside of what it's saying. And then each of them, I had one word come to mind. Sometimes it was instant. Sometimes it was like I had to ponder it. But one word that really describes that wise saying. So I'll read that to you, and we'll go through the entire thing. Shouldn't take too long, even though there's a lot of verses. There's not a lot of content. So number 1. So each one, as I say, it's just the verse. Number 1, 10:1. It says a proverb of Solomon: a wise son makes a glad father, but a foolish son is the grief of his mother. And the word that came to mind here is worldview. Ask any father and he will tell you that a child who is applying their knowledge of God to their decisions in life is like oxygen in his lungs. Ask any mother what it feels like to have a child who is running from God, and she will tell you it's like breathing with your head inside a plastic bag. So that's what it's going to be like. To see the Proverbs with much more, I think, graphic understanding of what Solomon is saying. Number 2, treasures of wickedness profit nothing, but righteousness delivers from death. The word profit, with F, by the way, profit like money. Anything you gain in life that has been inspired by, supported by, or will promote evil will leave you feeling utterly empty. Gain things in congruence with God's will, and you will feel life in abundance. By the way, all these notes are going to be online. So if you're taking notes and you want to write them all down, you can easily just download the notes that are right there on the website, if you want them. Or you could write them all by hand.
When you write it by hand, it goes into your brain.
That's excellent. You write it. You go, girl. 3. The Lord will not allow the righteous soul to famish, but he casts away the desire of the wicked. The word, provision. The mind, will, emotions, intentions, inspirations, and motivations that are animated by God's will and desires will prosper a man. But God will not empower the cravings of evil thoughts, intentions, and actions. Number 4, he who has a slack hand becomes poor, but the hand of the diligent makes rich. work ethic. The man who is loose and sloppy with the allocation of his physical resources, like his time and efforts, will accomplish very little and be surrounded by poverty. The man who is sharp and focused on specific efforts with specific goals and intentions and utilizes his time wisely can expect great rewards. I'm a master at turning a short sentence into a long sentence. That's funny. Number 5, he who gathers in summer is a wise son. He who sleeps in the harvest is a son who causes shame. Preparation. When it's time to reap a harvest, a wise man is prepared. He arrives at the proper time with the proper equipment. Nothing left on the vine until it rots will provide nourishment for the body, nor bring profit at the market. The wastefulness is a complete embarrassment. You're smiling. You're getting right. It's more content, right? It makes sense, right? Number 6, blessings are on the head of the righteous, but violence covers the mouth of the wicked. And the key word is intentions. The thoughts and intents of a man's heart are always known by the Lord, and the man who authentically wishes to please God lives in favor. But everything that emanates from an evil man's being is diametrically opposed to the ways of the Lord and aggressively attacks God's truth. Sounds like the Democratic Party. Anyway, I digress. Number 7. Remember, these are always just the Lord. This is Proverbs 10:7. The memory of the righteous is blessed, but the name of the wicked will rot. Wow. Should we say anything more? Okay, the key word here is reputation. A godly man will develop an excellent reputation because of the life he lived and the lives he impacted for the kingdom of God. That is how he will be remembered when he is gone. A man bent on evil will soon be forgotten as his body begins to rot in the grave. Number 8. The wise in heart will receive commands, but the prating fool will fall. That phrase, prating fool, shows up twice in this chapter.
What is a prating fool?
Well, you're going to find out, aren't we? Shortly. Ready? Keyword, receptivity. There is something wonderful about a man who stays quiet long enough to listen to wise counsel. Wow, we should repeat that. There is something wonderful about a man who stays quiet long enough to listen to wise counsel. Here's a prating fool, ready? A man who never stops talking is exhausting to the people around him and has no time to listen to anything beneficial and will pay a hefty price for his ill-advised, unenlightened, impetuous choices. Now you know what a prating fool is.
That's why I don't talk sometimes.
Excellent, excellent. Number 9. Hey, we're going right along quickly. This is fun. It's going to be the next 13 chapters like this. Not today, just one chapter today. He who walks with integrity walks securely, but he who perverts his ways will become known. Keyword, authenticity. If a man's lifestyle and choices are in alignment with God's will and with what he outwardly portrays, he will have no concern when who he is behind the scenes is exposed. That is because he is who he says he is, and his actions are congruent with his beliefs. But if he is just a complete hypocrite, and who he claims to be is a complete sham, once someone sees him behind the curtain, all his lies and deceptions will be revealed. Everything hidden eventually comes to light. Number 10. He who winks the eye causes trouble. But a prating fool, there you are, Danny, a prating fool will fall. Keyword, deception. A schemer can't be trusted under any circumstances. He is always disingenuous. A man who never stops talking is exhausting to be around and is too self-consumed to recognize deception. It is easy to take advantage of him. Right, this is like an expanded version of Proverbs. Doesn't it make more sense? I think, in our language. Number 11, the mouth of the righteous is a well of life, but violence covers the mouth of the wicked. Keyword, harvest. A man in whom there is great reverence for the ways of God speaks life over those around him and into every situation. He reaps a harvest of rewards. He who loves the ways of evil yields rot and decay, like one who spreads poison over freshly planted crops.
Monsanto.
Got it? Number 12. Hatred stirs up strife, but love covers all sins. Keyword, duality. These two could not be more opposite. Hatred makes room and even causes iniquity, whereas love conquers sin and death. That's it for that one. Number 13. Wisdom is found on the lips of him who has understanding, but a rod is for the back of him who is devoid of understanding. Keyword, consequences. Those who speak only after they know what will please the Lord and who make thoughtful decisions with God in mind are blessed. The man who follows the desires of his own heart and who chases what will satisfy his flesh will find only punishing curses. Consequences. Number 14. Wise people store up knowledge, but the mouth of the fool is near destruction. Keyword, foresight. A wise man seeks wise counsel and calls on what he has learned in times of need. His choices help him advance. A fool makes decisions on his own with no long-term strategy. He will end in failure. Number 15. The rich man's wealth is his strong city. The destruction of the poor is their poverty. This could be a little sketchy, right, when we start talking about wealth, money and wealth. Keyword, stewardship. Seeking wealth should not be your end goal, but if prioritized correctly, it will afford a man many advantages. Irresponsible behavior that leaves a man destitute causes him to have fewer options and offers him less opportunities. You see how I snuck in the priority, right? Because very often we see in the Bible that wealth is negative, right? Riches are risky, and that's true. But that's only if they're handled incorrectly, if they're sought after, if they become an idol, right? There's nothing wrong with it. As a matter of fact, it's what the proverb is saying. It's an advantage, but of course we have to add a little caveat in the beginning of it, to say it's got to be the proper priority. Number 16, which brings us to the halfway point. See, we're just moving right along. The labor of the righteous leads to life, the wages of the wicked to sin. Key word, work ethic. Work for what is noble, work honestly, and work for God, and you will have abundance. Work for what is dark, promote unrighteousness and sin, and work for self-gratification, and darkness will overtake you like a plague. That's scary. Number 17. He who keeps instruction is in the way of life, but he who refuses correction goes astray. Key word, obstinance. It takes humility and meekness for a man to hear wise counsel and to alter his course onto the narrow road because of it. But the payoff is great, and the outcome is abundant for his body, soul, and spirit. Pride and hubris blind a man to wise counsel and opens the gate to the wide road that leads to destruction. Obstinance. Number 18. Whoever hides hatred has lying lips, and whoever spreads slander is a fool. Keyword, self-deception. Enmity, bitterness, and unforgiveness are like poisonous seeds planted in a man's heart, but he will vehemently deny they exist. The fruit that grows from it is deception and false testimony. This hatred is never satisfied alone, so it feeds the soul and ignites an all-consuming desire to claim others are involved in its deceit, treachery, and self-deception. Number 19. In the multitudes of words, sin is not lacking, but he who restrains his lips is wise. Keyword, discretion. A wise man says less and is less likely to sin. Let's say that again. It's a handful of words so powerful. A wise man says less and is less likely to sin. He who is quick to listen and slow to speak is he who is available to be guided by the Holy Spirit instead of his carnal reflexes. Wow. Let's read that one again. He who is quick to listen and slow to speak is he who is available to be guided by the Holy Spirit instead of his carnal reflexes. So many opportunities each day to pause before you react or say anything. If you would just take a few breaths and have that question, what would God want me to do here? What would Yeshua do here? What would Yeshua say here? It's likely you would avoid almost every mistake you ever made with what comes out of your mouth. Speaking of the mouth, number 20. The tongue of the righteous is choice silver. The heart of the wicked is worth little. Keyword, resources. There is a treasure trove of riches available to a man who imparts the grace of God from his lips. But a tongue fueled by darkness leads to poverty of both resources and relationships. Number 21. The lips of the righteous feed many, but the fool dies for lack of wisdom. Oh, that's 21, I'm sorry. Number 21. Key word, sustenance. Man cannot live on bread alone, but is also fed by every word that enters his ears. Speak blessings, and you will impart life to the hearers. Spew forth curses, and the hearers shrivel and die because they are severed from the source of life, the vine that feeds them. That touches you, huh? Number 22. The blessings of the Lord make one rich, and he adds no sorrow to it. This is number 22. Keyword, favor. All good things come down from heaven, from the Father of light and life. There is nothing more abundant than a life fueled by the blessings of God, and there is never a downside. Number 23. To do evil is like I love this one. This one I spent a lot of time contemplating. To do evil is like sport to a fool. To do evil is like sport to a fool, but a man of understanding has wisdom. Keyword, fulfillment. Listen to this. This is so enlightening. A man trapped in his wicked ways sees life as a competition that he must win to feel fulfilled. The game never ends, and he is never ahead, nor ever wins. A man who prefers others is always joyful because when others win, he is thoroughly satisfied. Wow, that should be like a constitution for living. I like that one.
That's good.
Number 24. The fear of the wicked will come upon him, and the desire of the righteous will be granted. Keyword, alignment. What a man fears most is what a man receives most often. Wow. What a man fears most is what a man receives most often. He has aligned himself with evil desires, and the evil he desires is what he receives. When a man delights in the Lord, trusts in the Lord, and obeys the ways of the Lord, the desires of his heart are fulfilled by God. Number 25. By the way, are you guys seeing any, like I avoided, and I think I'm going to avoid all the cross-references that come to mind, because you could see cross-references in places of the Bible, like we saw earlier, love covers sins. Well, we see that in the New Testament. Love covers a multitude of sins. James said it. And it says, Paul said it, I believe, in one of the letters to the Corinthians. But you'll see things. You see, like, things come to mind. You can see where the writers were taking it, even Jesus in this one. When the whirlwind passes by, the wicked are no more, but the righteous has an everlasting foundation. Right? Doesn't that sound like the end of the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 7? When the winds blow and the house built on the sand or on the rock. So I call this one, keyword, protection. An evil man builds his house on quicksand. Any disturbance at all will cause it to sink into oblivion. But a man of God knows there is no other foundation but God. He builds his house on the rock, and when the storms come, it will stand because the foundation is permanent. Number 26. As vinegar to teeth and smoke to eyes. You get that picture? As vinegar to teeth and smoke to eyes, so is the lazy man to those who send him. Wow. You know what vinegar do to teeth? They dissolve it's an acid, so it takes the calcium out of the teeth, right? Smoke is an irritant. Listen to this. But look keyword, reliability. There is nothing dependable about an employee who moves like a sloth and whose work ethic is lethargic. Any assignment he is responsible to complete will only erode the faith in him and cause sorrow to his employer. That's a good one. Number 27. Wow, we really moved through these. The fear of the Lord prolongs days, but the years of the wicked will be shortened. This is 27. Reverence is the key word. Reverence. Everything God commands is meant to add value to a man's life in quality and quantity. A wise man reveres God and adheres to his instructions. An evil man invites curses over his life by ignoring God's instructions, and his life is miserable and his time limited. Number 28, the hope of the righteous will be gladness, but the expectation of the wicked will perish. Key word, expectations. A man of God is willing to endure the trials of life because he knows the favorable outcome is more than he can ask, think, or imagine. There is nothing good in which to find hope for a man whose life is animated by wickedness. His outlook for the future is grim. Number 29. The way of the Lord is strength for the upright, but the destruction will come to the workers of iniquity. 29. Obedience. All good things are possible for those who are energized by the Lord for their inspiration, motivation, direction, and obedience to his commands. Many who perish will say they depended on the Lord, but they were lying as revealed by their sinful behavior, because sin is lawlessness. Number 30. Hey, there's only 32. The righteous will never be removed, but the wicked will not inhabit the earth. Keyword, destiny. The inheritance for those who trust in the Lord is permanent and glorious. This is really good, right? Let me read that again. The inheritance for those who trust in the Lord is permanent and glorious. The inheritance for those who do not trust in the Lord is also permanent, but miserable. Number 31. Sustainability. The mouth of the righteous brings forth wisdom, but the perverse tongue will be cut off. So again, the key word is stability. There is no limit to the amount of fruit that can come from the words of those who honor God in all they say. But the man who vomits perversity will have his opinions ignored, and ultimately his voice will be stifled. And the last one. Can you imagine we got here so quickly? Number 32. The lips of the righteous know what is acceptable, but the mouth of the wicked what is perverse. Key word, access. A man willing to speak the truth of God is a man in whom God can trust with his truth. Ooh, you want to write that down? A man willing to speak the truth of God is a man in whom God can trust with his truth. An evil man will be fed information from a depraved, deviant, immoral source. From that source, his words are crafted. Anyway, I would encourage you guys as we go through this long section of Proverbs over the next many months, going from chapter 10 all the way through chapter 22, that you download the notes after they're uploaded and you have these. Some of these will really, even when I'm reading them, I'm reading these descriptions and I wrote them. So even when I'm reading them, I say, wow, that's a keeper. Like that's a thing to remember in life.
Yeah.
And pay attention to and apply. And the next time, and again, I think I'm just going to keep the same. I don't know what else to call these. I think this next season, each of these will just be called volumes. Why saying volume 2? That would be Proverbs 11, and that has 31 verses. We'll see you next time.